Hello, I'm Alicia Malone from Fandango Filmstruck. I'm sure you're just processing that crazy roller coaster ride that you just went on. You know, I haven't stopped talking about this film since I've seen it, and last night did a bunch of Q&As, and I left the theatre at 1:30 a.m. and people were still milling about and just chatting about what it all means, and that's so exciting to someone who loves movies. So let's kick off the conversation. We have some incredible people with us today. Please welcome the producers of the film, Ari Handel, Scott Franklin, and director Darren Aronofsky. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
It's been so much fun to chat about this film.
You guys look like you've been through hell. Sorry.
So you've spoken about the writing process being really fast and furious, but do you approach a film like this in the same way that you do any other? Do you look at like structure and beats and hero's journey and that kind of thing?
That's a good question. Did we ever do a hero's journey? We did do a hero's journey, yeah.
But not till after.
Not till afterwards, yeah.
That's a difference.
Yeah, it was a very different process. Normally, like most of the films, we spent many, many, many years on working on the scripts and developing them and sculpting them. And I kind of was excited about trying to do a different approach to this one. The idea came to me over a couple of weeks, and I had this long weekend, and I sort of pumped out this one emotion through my poor computer, which will never be the same. And then I shared it with these guys, and they read it, and they were like, well, there's something interesting here. And I kind of liked the idea of just running with it instead of spending all those years of working on something. And so I think it had a different energy and kind of more of a dream nightmare type of logic to it. And I don't know, we were just trying to do something different for audiences.
Yeah, and that process was fast, but then you got to have 3 months of rehearsals. So what did you discover during that process?
We spent a lot of time working on, you know, because it was very clear what the allegorical, metaphorical kind of characters were, and then we tried to make them more and more human. And I think that's when Javier and Jen really shone and brought up that, you know, a lot of conversation. And then the last 2 weeks of the 3 months, we got on our feet, and Scott brought down the camera team, and we actually shot the entire movie once in a taped-out version of the house, kind of like Dogville. And then we cut it together, and we had kind of this 2-hour-long version of it, but it was without hair, makeup, or walls. And then I made the whole crew watch it, and everyone was sort of kind of looking like how you're looking right now. Well, it wasn't much of a difference. But they were all even more confused because they had read the script and stuff. So, I mean, for me, the excitement is that the idea was to take the audience, see if audiences would be willing to go into a dream state or a nightmare, and then afterwards, you know, try to analyze it and think about it. And that's hopefully I can bet my hat on that you guys will be talking about it and debating it for a little bit to come. So that's cool.
You've done touches of Fever Dream and Nightmares in your other projects, but you've never sustained that Fever Dream pace for quite a long time. It's almost 30 minutes. Yeah. What's the secret in keeping that up but not pushing the audience completely over the edge?
Well, there are people that are over the edge. So, and we always knew we'd lose some. It's always, you know, that line of like what people can handle is always it's always a question of what I think is. I just go with what I think is kind of cool and what I could handle. And I don't know. I still like as I watch that 25-minute sequence at the end, the Fever Dream we call it. You know, I still get a grin on my face. You know, because it's wicked.
Yeah, I think I was smiling, being like, how audacious is this sequence? And it's so incredible. And I think the secret a lot comes to Jennifer Lawrence. I mean, she takes the audience on this journey. And obviously she's someone who we know is such a brilliant actress. And we've seen her push herself, you know, physically and emotionally before. But can you talk about how the more subtle things she did when it came to the close-up acting?
I've answered a lot. Ari, you want to handle this one?
Yeah, you can.
Of Jen's performance? Sure.
Yeah, and the close-up acting.
So as you know, 66 minutes of that film is a close-up of her face, which is amazing. And what she does, she's kind of like a tractor beam that like pulls you through the film and lets you know what to feel, even when the film goes to places where, which are so surreal that there's no way to really understand it. And she allows you to understand it, and she's really the guide for the audience to get through this crazy film. And it's amazing that she's able to pull you through it, and you'll always know exactly where she is and where you need to be.
Well, we love hearing from you guys. So who's got a question you'd like to ask? Yes, down here.
Why is it called Mother?
Why do you think?
I don't know, I'm kind of like decipher that all going this story that I could not figure it out. At one point I thought Mother Nature.
Hey, stop there. Good. Done. Okay. There you go.
Gold star,
Good.
yes.
That's it. Why not? Why did you fall off of that idea?
I didn't fall off, I just wanted to confirm. Undertones and Jesus Christ and God.
You're all there, baby. You got it. I mean, that's a funny thing. It's like people, it's like, okay, good guy wears this costume, bad guy wears this costume, they fight once, and then like at the end of the movie they fight again. We've all seen that. I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to try and do something different because I feel like we've got a lot of that same stuff out there, and it's kind of fun to kind of explore. It's a little weird because you stick Jen Lawrence and Javier Bardem, and everyone's like, whoa, what the heck? This is what? But, I mean, that's the fun of it. It's like we got to make something that's very different, but you got it. That's it. So.
I love Javier, yes.
Are you trying to teach us a lesson?
No, I don't know if I don't know if it was about teaching a lesson. And I think that's what, for me, it was a reflection, and it's, I don't exclude myself from that, but my DP Maddie calls it also a cautionary tale, and the reason I like it as a cautionary tale, I mean, you could say it was Requiem for a Dream to teach you a lesson, but it was about like, no, it's about like, this is what happens when you do drugs, and so I guess it is like teach you a lesson, but I mean, the reality is, how do we treat our mother, meaning not your mother, not my mother, but all of our mother, the one that has given us all this life. And a big thing that really pissed me off is, in England, I'm not defending the British, but they call it earth, at least they call it earth. We call it dirt. And it's just like this endless attack on her. We feel like we can take everything. There's this idea that we have dominion over her and that we can take everything from her. And it's a rape of her, and there's no respect for her. There's very few people giving back, and we're all part of it. And it's like now we're actually seeing her wrath, like we're witnessing it, and a lot of people are still denying that it's happening. So for me, that as a parent, that passion to say something about it was in me. So, I'm not trying to talk down to people. I'm just trying to reflect back of like kind of what's happening. If you pick up any good newspaper, and you actually read what's in that newspaper, there is nothing on that screen that's any worse than anything that's actually in any daily newspaper. It's just you're looking at words and not movie stars, and it's not right in your face. But that was about, it's like we get really detached from what's happening. I just went to see the Naruto VR thing, and that's happening not that far from here. That border stuff, and when you really see it, and the fact that shit's going on, it's like, it's unbelievable. So, I don't know. I think that's the important part about my work is that I'm always just trying to put it up there. But I'm sorry if you feel like I was trying to, anyway. But it's not a lesson. It's like it's something we are aware. I mean, it's just, today Trump in the Washington Post, they said he's going to try and drill in the Arctic. Where I went to this wilderness. It's the last piece of wilderness in the United States. I went with a bunch of veteran groups, people who fought for our country, and they're all fucked up from their experiences, and they go there and they have these incredible experiences because they see what they fought for, what they're defending. And wilderness is a hard thing. Like people think wilderness, what does that mean? But there's like no wilderness left in the United States. It's national parks, but it's not actually wilderness. It's taken care of. This is actual big chunk of northeastern Alaska that's just been left alone. And they drop you off in the middle of it, and you could basically walk 200-300 miles in any direction and not see any, light post, road, anything. And that's the only piece of America left like that. And now they're going to start drilling there. So it's like, you know, while Harvey and Irma's happening. So it's Meshuggah. Sorry to bring up my Yiddish, but it's fucking Meshuggah.
We'll go up there, yes. Yes.
Just a film question. What is it about the 16 millimeter that keeps you coming back?
I like 16 because it's cool and it's different. It's different, you know. And once again, I think everyone's shooting on these video cameras, and you know, images look really alike.
It's hard, man. You know, it's hard. I mean, the 16, it's so beautiful and so artistic, and yes, you can, you know, manipulate and work on your video images a lot after you shoot them to try to make them look like 16 and you get there, but there's still some texture or some flavor or some feeling that's just missing that you only get with the 16. And it's you know, like what Darren was talking about, you know, happening in the world. It's kind of sad that it's happening with film too, but you know, that's progress, you know. But there's no labs anymore that really can process it and do a good job with it, and the time that it takes to get back. I mean, you know, video definitely has made it easier, but you know, the work and the pain you put into shooting on that format, you know, it comes through when you do it.
Looks beautiful down here.
Hi, I saw Pi when it came out in theaters. I was living in Detroit, and it was like in this little art house. Cool. And I felt that exhilarated feeling, like I just, same thing, just now.
Oh, thank
and
you.
I'm wondering, you know, that bold, you know, move, just like that, did you get any pushback from, you know, other producers or people? Because it's really an artsy film.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we're getting the pushback now, but they let us make it, which is great. You know, and I think that's the exciting thing. And I encourage you guys to. I mean, I'm sure there's people in here that are just like, you know, they're still very angry, which is okay, and you're supposed to be. I mean, I knew we were doing that, and you know, when you throw a punch at the audience, some people are going to be like, yeah, hit me again, and other people are going to be like, you know, they'll want to hit back, ow. So, and that's fine, but for me, it's just like it comes from a place of light. I think by looking into the darkness, you reveal the light, and I think, once again, it's you know, the final chapter has not been written, and it's kind of a hard truth to look at. But you know, maybe I just spend too much time looking at it. Maybe people don't want to pay for that type of entertainment. But the other thing we were trying to do is make something that doesn't bore you. So, I mean, was anyone bored? Feel free. You were bored? You bored? Yeah? Okay. I was bored. Well, go. We have one bored.
Shall we see up the back somewhere? If someone wants to go. Yes, right up the back there. Yes.
Many sociopaths, they have this image of a house in which they're storing memories or experiences. That was my interpretation of the movie, and now I'm wondering whether you also heard of this theory and actually...
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning.
Sociopaths, right?
Many sociopaths what?
It's documented that sociopaths, they typically have this inner place where they can go at to store memories or to manipulate their feelings. And that was the interpretation I was getting while I was watching the film.
So interesting.
Who was the sociopath?
I have a friend.
Oh, no, but in
Who are your friends?
Go for it.
Well, I'm going to just tell you what he said.
No, answer it.
I don't know if I can answer it,
Yeah,
but
try
I'll
it.
I think what you said was that many sociopaths, there's a theory that they have a inner house, like where they store memories and some of their bad feelings, and it's a place where they go to process stuff. And when you watch this film, you were wondering if this house is the inner home of a sociopath. Is that what your question is?
I mean, it kind of works for the allegory. We never really talked about it that way, but it kind of fits into this.
Because
really
there definitely is a sociopath, kind of.
Yeah,
in
he's a
certain way.
narcissistic guy who's reliving this pattern over and over again. So I think that's fine. We never really put it in those terms, and that's great. I mean, that's the cool thing. It's like it fits, it works, and it adds dimension. It makes everyone think I'm smarter, but I had no clue. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we'll go. Oh, back.
Yeah,
Can we see anyone right up? Yep, right up there. Yes, you stand up.
I'm wondering, why is it that you make a lot of movies with like kind of meet women main characters, And I'm wondering if that's like what that means to you and why. What's your interest in that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think I make all my characters get messed up, men and women alike. Max Cohen drills in his head, and Mickey Rourke gets a staple gun, and Natalie Portman gets stabbed with the mirror and jumps off. But for me, it was very much this character of the film. I was trying to portray Mother Nature, which is like, I find someone with a big heart who's given us all this life and is constantly giving and giving and giving love and just wants to be loved back. That was the character. That's how I kind of interpreted the spirit. And then I think how it played out was, her trying to figure out what's going on, but really trying to understand and try to kind of decode why this guy wouldn't love her the way she was giving him all this stuff.
We'll go over here. Yeah, again.
So would you say there was a particular moment that inspired this movie, or was it a culmination of things, or just what kind of made you go, ooh, this?
It was. I kind of had the idea for that, to take this big allegory, and I also then connected it to, I immediately saw like an emotional story, but I think the big breakthrough was the structure, which was kind of trying to use the Bible, which I love the stories of the Bible, and I thought it would be a very interesting way to tell the story of people on the planet. And that was kind of the breakthrough. So I don't know if anyone saw in the credits what Javier's character was called. Yeah. And did you notice how it was spelt? It was capitalized, and it's the only capital in the whole credits. And what else do you capitalize? God. And so the first man, Ed Harris, who shows up is, and then Michelle, when she shows up, is, and then the boys are, that's right. And then when the sink breaks, that's the flood, right? So the whole Old Testament kind of is the structure of it, and then it turns into the New Testament when she's pregnant. And that kind of breakthrough of that idea of kind of sort of using that to tell the story of people kind of unleashed it. And that was the idea of like telling the story of people on Mother Earth and making a cautionary tale out of it and then fucking you all up. Sorry. Pardon? What?
I love your brain.
Thank you.
Still figuring out the yellow liquid though.
Shh.
Where do you want to go next? Let's go. Yes, you right there. Yeah.
So there's a lot of great supporting performances in the movie, and some of them, they're very significant characters, but some are really minor characters, and you have like Kristen Wiig coming in towards the end for like a really brief moment. Is there any significance to that casting? Is there any significance to any of the other, like, who's a fresh face versus who's a recognizable face?
You answer the Kristen Wiig, because he fought for Kristen Wiig.
It's just trying to put great talent and great actors that can really hold the screen opposite, the people that we have in the movie and leading in the film.
But to answer that, actually, it's interesting because sometimes in a dream, like Obama shows up or something. So it's kind of cool that Kristen Wiig sort of shows up in the middle of this nightmare. Like someone interpreted it that way, like, oh yeah, every once in a while a weird celebrity shows up in your dream, and you're suddenly like, and then you wake up, yeah, I was having sex with so and so. Sorry, that was me slipping, but anyway. Sorry.
It's just when a character comes into a film like that and has to make such an impact and hold the screen with Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence, and you look at the list of people that are presented to you, you just you want someone that adds something and that reignites the screen as opposed to just kind of shows up and disappears and keeps it flat. I mean, no disrespect to all the working actors out there in the world, but could you imagine if we just had an unrecognizable person who you didn't know, who with moderate talent or anything like that in that role, would it have been as powerful or as strong for you guys?
No. And then, and it also has that dream, and then suddenly it takes that weird turn, and you're like, what the hell is Kristen Wiig doing? And I think it just added to this kind of circus feel of the whole thing.
Yeah, shooting people in the face. Go right up the back here.
Hi, so when I first saw this movie, I just think maybe it's a story about a writer or any kind of an author, trying to create their works. And then, they just opened up their inner heart to the audience or readers, whatever that is. And something sometimes just went crazy, that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't understand it, as you said, as a metaphor, as a mother nature. So my question is, as a director, is it kind of bother you that sometimes the audience wouldn't understand what you're trying to say?
I think it's okay that it works on that human level, and I think a lot of people just get that story of this kind of relationship, a marriage that's starting to break apart, and that's fine. I don't know how. It blows my. I just like when the house starts freaking out and soldiers are coming through the windows. I don't know how you quite. If you don't step into this maybe some other ideas going on here, I'm not sure how you follow it. And I think maybe that's where there's some detachment. And, I don't know, films have become very, very like, in the 70s they became based in realism. In the 80s and 90s they got very fantasy based. But if you get onto Filmstruck.
Hey, thank you.
And, which I love, by the way. You see like the dream state is constantly a big part of movies. And a big influence was Exterminating Angel, which you can watch on Filmstruck too.
Yes, you can. Thank you. Yes, down the center there. Yes, you.
Could you talk about the poster in the relation to Rosemary's Baby poster?
Get this a lot.
Yeah, no, I think it was kind of a red herring type of thing. We went through a lot of posters. There is a chance they might actually allow me to release a poster I've always wanted to release this week. So hold on. It's going to be is pretty crazy.
It is.
But the poster
you have to release it.
Yeah, I know.
You said it on the. It's done.
Well, I'll see if they let me. But the poster I loved was always of her holding the heart. They were like, "Oh, this is cool," and I was like, "Yeah, it's not bad, but it looks like Rosemary's Baby," and I don't know, but then it just was very beautiful, and I thought it was kind of cool because it's somewhere in the genre. It might have been a mistake doing that. I don't really know. My son, when he saw it, he said, "But Dad," he's 11 years old. He's like, "Dad, your whole thing's about originality, and you're biting Rosemary's Baby. What are you doing?" So you hear that from an 11-year-old. Now you, sir, it bums me out.
We'll go way up the back, right in the center.
I was wondering if, because you wrote the whole thing and then you have all the structure down, so when you're actually filming it, was there something that you came up with that is like on the set and inspire you to do something else?
Yeah, this was a weird one. It constantly happened because, Ari was talking about yesterday, I would write, and then the riot police come in, And, that's one line, and then suddenly you have to answer like 300 questions to get that right. How many, what are they wearing, how are they acting, what do they look like, just tons of stuff. So this film, more than anything, I think, was really built as we moved along. And it was kind of done, it was trying to do things differently than we usually do. And just seeing what the results would be.
Yeah, I'll go in the center there because you've had your hand up for a while. Yes.
Yeah.
So I went on a roller coaster of emotion. And I'm usually one that can figure things out.
Oh, good.
And and I also go back to, the early episodes of Twilight Zone.
Cool.
Things like that.
Cool.
And I felt, a gamut of issues, so modern day atrocities, and then there was a scene there where you had women behind, what's it called?
Chicken wire type of thing.
Wire.
Yeah, and that really struck me because I remember an old episode of Twilight Zone where there was a house, and as the camera panned back, you know, you saw that this family had won a lottery in this particular episode.
Oh, yeah.
And then there were, for miles, people just stuck up against this fence where
I
they
don't know if I've
could
seen that one.
get in. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, cool.
But the thing is, it was interesting that you had all women behind that.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I get the relationship with the mothers and all that, but my mind is still blown.
Oh, good.
It's hard
Well, no,
to process.
it's for you. It's actually funny. Can I read my quote? Yeah. So you guys know who Money Mark is? The guy who used to play with the Beastie Boys? Hold on, let me find it. Got to put money in. So he came to the screening, and he wrote, this is a Rod Serling quote he just sent me today. And he wrote, "The writer's role is to menace the public's conscience. He must have a position, a point of view. He must see the arts as a vehicle of social criticism, and he must focus on the issues of his time." Right? Rod Serling.
Yeah.
So
Thank
he
you,
is,
Kurt.
Rod Serling, I mean, like in 8th grade, I wrote book reports about Rod Serling. So that was so to hear that, I'm sure I've stolen from him my whole life. So, yeah, I mean, definitely. So.
Awesome. Over here.
Hi, so my question is about the ending. So you said earlier that this film is the allegory for Mother Nature, and it's more of a cautionary tale for us and how we act in our environment. So I wanted to ask if you could expand more on your ending and why you decided to choose the cycle of life, why you decided to reincarnate, I guess,
A different woman. Yeah. It's a very good question. I felt like, you know, when we had a lot of conversations, Jen was like, what is that supposed to be, Mars or Venus? Like God goes off to another planet. And I was like, oh, that's kind of good. But I think that's where the idea that, you know, that there's this cycle of creation and destruction over and over again. And out of when you create something, sometimes you have to destroy things. And it's like I mean, there's lots of examples in Hinduism and all different types of religions where you hear about, you know, even in nature, you hear about the forest fires and then a whole new thing is created. But it's different, and it's a different shot at it. So the idea was leaning into that.
I just would also say, not to put words in your mouth, but
Always.
It's another way of saying, and if you haven't quite gotten it yet, this is not exactly a world that obeys by our rules. There's something else going on here. That loop tells you that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for making a film that
Thank you, guys.
sparks these conversations.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys for coming.
All right, thank you,
Darren,
guys.
Scott, Ari.